Okay, excuse me. We're learning the famous maamar of Vaheinif, which is the maamar we're meant to learn on Shvi Pesach, the 7th of Pesach, which is tomorrow night, Tuesday night. Let's bring up the text. Let's make sure we have it here. Here we go. This maamar is based on the pasuk of the Haftorah that we learn on Shvi'i Shal Pesach. That we say on Achron Shal Pesach, which is about the days of Moshiach, the prophecy of Yeshaya and Navi. So it says, one of the things it talks about in the days of Moshiach, or when Moshiach comes, Vaheinif Yodo el Hanar, he will kind of lift his hand over the river. Vayam Ruchai, the strength of a spirit, V'hikol l'shiv nechalim, and he will split it into seven paths, or 7 streams that will break from the river. So the river that's one will turn into 7. So again, obviously, this is we're trying to understand the comparison between the splitting of the river to 7, and the splitting of the Red Sea, which is Shvi Pesach, which we know tradition has it that it was split into 12 or 13 paths. So he's Hine Yam Suf Hu Bechinas Malchus Datzilis. The Yam Suf, the Red Sea, is what's called Malchus Datzilis, kingship or royalty of Atzilus, and we know that the idea of Malchus is that one of the ideas of Malchus is the Malchus kingship royalty receives from everything, from others. So from the other, like a king doesn't have to be wealthy on his own. Does the army belongs to the country? All the power he has comes from the country that he's a king of, but he's the king. So too Malchus has nothing of her own. It's like the moon that reflects the light of the sun, but at the same time receives from all the other 9 midos attributes, the 3 intellectual and the 6 emotional, but it's the royalty, it's the communication. It communicates the power of the midos. Without Malchus, it doesn't go anywhere. It's a concept. So it's communication or moving it forward. So the Yamsuf is Malchus Atzilus. It's like the royalty of Atzilus. In this case, we're talking about Bechinas Dibur, which is like speech. So one of the examples of Malchus is speech. Speech, Dibur Elyon, like you say, Baruch Shamar, God spoke and the world came into being. So it's the speech, so to say, of Hashem, Lahavdil. Shahad Dibur, the speech in general of a person, in the process of communication. When you have an idea to communicate, so when you actually speak the words that you want to say, is Seifin the Kol Dargan, and that's the end of everything. Meaning, to say something, you have something to say, and you could prepare yourself to say it, you could get yourself clarity, get the idea, all that is good, and it's prepared, and until you communicate it hasn't been spoken. The point of communication is the speech. So the Seif, the end of everything that you're trying to do over here, which in this case is to communicate an idea, is when you actually speak it. So the speech is the seif of the end of everything. For instance, when you have something important to say, or discipline, or giving orders, or teaching something. So all that is nice and good until you speak it. It's not been communicated. Shebidvar Hashem Shemayim Nasa. So too with the word of God, everything heavens come into being. V'chol asar amaris, and the 10 utterances. They're all coming from the 10 attributes of Atzilus, different levels of communication, different ideas. Like we say, the first day is, like for instance, in the creation, the 6 days of creation, each is the 6 midos. So the first day is chesed, the second day is gevura. That's why the second day is division, which is gevura, which is separation, boundaries. So all the idea of the 10 maamarim in general, the 10 utterances, is a communication of the 10 different spheres, attributes. And they come from the world of Atzilus, but they have to be communicated, and therefore they come into the utterance, which is dibur, speech. That is Malchus, kingship, royalty of Atzilus, to speak the 10 utterances of the ideas of the attributes of Atzilus. Again, like a person who would say kind words, etc. Kind words meaning, i.e., representing the attribute of kindness, which is chesed. And comes into speech. He or God spoke, let there be light. And or is chesed, let there be light. And the power to speak something, hey Ariel, comes from the power of Chachma. Now here what we're going to explain over here is that the speech itself is a screen, not just a tool of communication. It also screens the communication, both in making it understandable, so you can take an idea that's in your head and make it understandable. But not only that, but he's also talking about the technicality of speech. Is the technicality of speech um, is separate, is concealing. Means if you were, when you have words, and the words themselves are articulating an idea. So everyone knows that certain words mean certain things. So when you say them and the person understands it, so then we understand that the words give us an idea. So it's really the words are a method for two people to communicate, the person who's speaking and the person who's listening. But if you take away that the fact that there's ideas in the words themselves are not ideas. The words themselves are only vessels to communicate an idea. But if, for instance, if you wanted to say one thing and you said something else, so the person doesn't understand, right? If a person means to say something kind and you said something hurtful, you didn't communicate it right. And the person says, I didn't mean to say it that way, right? So what happened? But the person heard it that way because it was the words you chose. So what does it mean? Because what's a sign? It means it's not a guarantee that the words are going to articulate the idea. Or if a person has no way of putting words together. Or if words just come together that are not connected to an idea. So although in the case of over here, we're talking about the words of communication, but that just happens to be that the words themselves are alive with the communication. But words themselves are actually totally separate from communication. Words are just letters and words. So that's what we're going to get to the idea of Kriyas Yamsuf. Kriyas Yamsuf means that imagine you have the effect of the words without understanding the meaning of the words. Right? It's like someone who reads something over without understanding an idea that's being said. Right? Someone writes something. Someone takes out a book of a deep idea of a deep philosophy or something, and can read it. You could read the words. You read the words. You have no idea what you're saying. So, but that doesn't mean that you're not reading the words. You're pronouncing the words perfectly, but there's no connection between the words and the idea. You can't get the idea out of the words. That's what it means that the dibur of Malchus Tatzilus into Bria, without the Kriya Samsov, it's words without understanding what the words mean. Atzilus is too high to go into the world of creation. So though Baruch Shamar Vayaylam, the world comes into being, but there's no knowledge or understanding of what's behind the words. But the words themselves, as they're being spoken, have very deep depth, and not only they have depth, they have effect because the world gets created from them. But on the receiving side, there's no understanding what the words mean. That's what means that that Malchus of Atzilus is the sea, because just like a sea, you don't see what's in it. So too, imagine you have the words without any understanding what the words mean. Although you could have the effect of what the words do. So he says over here like this. It says, so Kumal Derech Mashal, use an example. Hey Sharna, it gives an example. We're talking about we're understanding what is the idea of Kriyas Yamsuf splitting the Red Sea is the idea of Malchus of Atzilus, of the world of Atzilus, giving life to the world of Bria, and even creating Baruch Shamar Vayam, the world comes creation, but not in a way where we are articulating words that are understood. It's like someone speaking words that are not understood. So though the words are vessels to the ideas, but it's someone the receiving side has no idea what's being said. That's what Kriyas Yamsuf is. It means before Kriyas Yamsuf, the sea totally covers over the idea. It gives an example. If you have a person, Adam, the reason why you speak something is because the words of speech are the vessel to the seichel, to the intellect, or the midos, or the emotion that you want to express. And they enclose themselves in these words. So you can articulate the idea. Now, there's two ways. Either you say that you're watering down the idea. I can't really communicate how I feel. I can't really communicate what I understand. I'm trying the best I can, but some sort of idea gets through. Or you don't understand the word I'm saying. It could be either way. The words totally cover over the intellect that's inside of them, And they get hidden inside. They cover and they get hidden. So here's an example. If you say something and a child repeats it, and the child could read perfectly, the child reads over everything that's being said or being written. The child does not know anything or doesn't understand anything just because he can read the words. Meaning to say, the example that we're trying to give over here is that just saying the words doesn't mean you know what it's being said. You have to have acquired a certain level of knowledge to be able to use those ideas, the words, to also trigger an idea by you. Means if you have no idea, or if you have enough of a education on using your brain, or smart enough to understand from words what it means. But if you, but just because you know the words, and the words is all the seichel. Ariel, did you invite someone called David Cameron?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
So if you have, even if you have all the words, and the person knows the words, there's no guarantee at all that the person knows what's being said. And like the child who could repeat something doesn't have any understanding. Even Klaus has scholarship has no understanding of the intellect, the idea being said, just because you know the words. The person has to himself or herself have been already a smart person. Them before they heard what's being said. As I made him then the words are a code to your understanding, to the basis of information that you already have acquired. That makes sense. So, wow, that's a brilliant idea. Just because there's words, totally conceals. So actually, what he's saying over here is that basically, words themselves is a 100% concealing of an idea. And the proof is that just because you could say the words and pronounce them perfectly doesn't mean you understand anything. But in the event that you are a person that's themselves already smart or has already information, so then the words become a code to information that you already have, or a way of thinking that you've already acquired, so you could understand from the coded letters of the words what's the idea behind it. But the words themselves are totally concealing the idea, which is what Kriyas Yamsuf is. Therefore, Lamaila, she's Havis Chachma Dibiyah, who rak mina dibra elyon. So when you have the creation already starting, so imagine what basically the Alter Rebbe is saying over here, and which is when we say Loi machshavos machshavos and all the levels that we're saying that we can't reach we can't understand God's greatness, even the greatness, the way God manifests in the world of Atzilus, is literally like a child who could read words and has no idea what the words mean. That's how far we are from understanding what's going on with creation. So therefore, when you say that there's Hisavis is a creation of Chachma, of the world of Biyah, Chachma of Biyah comes from Malchus of Atzilus, because it's the head of the next world, it takes from the top of the bottom of the world above it. It's only speech itself. Like my mashal shalom into chacham mikaydim. This is like the child. It's not that the world of Bria is already understanding and just needs the coded words to understand the specifics of what's being said. But once what's being said is said, so we understand it because we're a chacham from before. You're not a chacham from before. The lower world is like the child who knows nothing. So what does that mean? So that the words are there, everything is in there. In theory, one who could understand would understand something being articulated, but we don't understand. We don't know what these words mean. So therefore, the words themselves are not just although they're also a tool to communicate, but they're communicating words with no message that's understood. So there's an effect without a tfisa, without a grasp, or hasaga comprehension. It's totally not being explained into the world of Bria. We're 3 worlds down, so imagine what we understand. A little bit of light. Almost, that's what we use here as in a comparison, which hair has life, otherwise it wouldn't grow on a person's head or body. But there's the very fact that and therefore it's connected to the body, it's connected to the moch, to the brain, but it's so disconnected from the nerve system that most people, 99% of people, don't feel any pain when you cut your hair. I'm not talking about pulling your hair. I'm talking about actually just cutting your hair. You don't feel any pain. Why? You're disconnecting it from its life source. When it was in the body, it was connected to chayas. The proof is it continues to grow. But why? So why if you cut it, don't you have any pain? Because it's so disconnected. It's so little that you can't even feel pain. That's what it means, the seed. So that's before the splitting. That's a seed. So that's and in the world, this is why Avram Avinu was revolutionary. Why is Avram Avinu revolutionary? Because he was saying things that were totally not understood. It means he was saying words. There's a God, Al Tikr Kel, to thank the God, and there's the Kel Olam. But the ideas were so foreign. It was literally like a child repeating words that they don't understand, because until Matan Torah, there was no real way to connect the Dibur, the Ser, that's why we have the Ser Dibros with the Ser Mamaris. The idea of the 10 commandments have to connect to the 10 utterances. That was what happened in Matan Torah, and that started with Yetziat Mitzrayim, and Kriyas Yamsuf was the beginning of that idea to reveal and give meaning to the words. Inami, that's one example. So this example is very harsh, meaning to say very little info or very little understanding at all to anything that's being communicated at all. Like he explains the child who repeats words. Here he gives it a little lighter. Inami, a second way of giving it as an example. Now, if the Alter Rebbe brings two examples in a mimer, it's not because he wants to give two examples, it's because there's two different ideas that he wants to communicate, two levels. Inami mashadibur nikar helam. That's the idea that speech is considered concealing. Meaning to say is there's from the side of the receiving end, that the child, let's say, or the person who receives it, if you're not a chacham gadol and you can't understand the coded words, but then you also have in general, what's being communicated itself is still not the essence of what you understood. When a person, for instance, even if you're going to say a speech or give a shiur, especially if you're going to teach as a teacher to students, meaning the teacher is above the students in knowledge, in the subject at hand, right? So you can't give over the raw intellect of the idea, because then the child or the student doesn't have the ability to understand it. So here, when the teacher communicates the information, so the teacher has to give only over the chitzonis, the external of the information. So here, the idea of helem is not just that it's a helem, it's concealment, but it's a concealment because what's the information itself is when it went into the words, at the time it goes into the words, it's only the external of what you're trying to communicate, because you can't give the raw information. So the difference between that, we're saying that the dibur, speech, is like the sea that covers over, is because initially what you put into the words were only external information. For instance, if a person wants to say something of emotion, so you can't give the raw emotion, so you kind of water it down when you articulate. When you say over an idea, you bring it to its chitzonius. So then on the giving side, it's not the full force that's being given. What was given over initially was only external information. The depth, the depth of the intellect, it's not possible to bring out into words, and that's why they say the sign of a chacham gadol, of a great smart person, versus a less smart person. Both of them can know a subject, but their power of articulating it and putting it into words of communication, and that's where it really shows how much do you own the subject. Are you able to put in, even into the words, enough that the person who's just listening to it can get the full understanding, even to simplify it, seemingly, but when you simplify it, but once the person takes it, over time they can develop and get to the full information. So over here, actually, what we're saying is that when we're saying it's also the difference is how much at the end of the day, the difference between the first answer and the second answer. Why are words concealing? Why are words considered yam, like the sea that covers over whatever's underneath? Is according to the first one, it's much harsher, meaning to say that we're not talking about on the side of the giving, but the side of the receiving is so disconnected. It's just literally like reading words that you don't understand. You can read them perfectly, but you don't understand. The second one is what initially was given over is concealed, because you're only giving the external of the idea. You can't give the full idea because you can't articulate it. And also, there's no way for the person to understand it. But the very fact that you're able to give over chitzonius means that there's more being given over. That's the point. The point is there's more being revealed at the end of the day in the second answer of why words are called sea. So that's what the sea means. And at that point, if you think about it, you close your eyes for a second, when the Jews are standing at the Red Sea and they have the Egyptians from behind them and the sea in front of them, that is exactly that moment. The Egyptians represent reality. This is the world. We're coming to get you back because I'm in charge, and I'm going to bring you back to the world of Paroi, the world of total external, the world of totally who says there's no God. And they want to connect, but they're facing the sea that has no connection. They can't get to the idea because the sea is, like we said, Malchus covers it over one way or another. Either it doesn't have the enough information, it's only chitzonius, or even more so, it's like mamish, I don't understand the words. So the Jewish people felt that they're stuck because at one point Paro is offering something. He's offering to bring them to space. Yes, it may not be what Moshe Rabbeinu was saying. This wasn't the idea of Avram Avinu, that there's a higher purpose. But where they're going, they don't understand. So what's Kriyas Yamsuf? God splits the Red Sea and reveals the meaning of the words. The meaning Kriyas Yamsuf splitting the Red Sea is Hainu this that was concealed now becomes revealed. All of a sudden, the Jewish people are taken to another reality. It's literally like the child who's like miraculously starts to understand the words that he or she is speaking. Or you're able to take from the chitonis to really get to the panemius. What does it mean, splitting the Red Sea? That no longer do the words conceal the message. You're not just reading words. Now you understand what you're reading. So all of a sudden, the Jewish people, they walk into this Red Sea. They walk into that space and they leave the Egyptians behind. That world gets destroyed. But before that point, they felt locked in. They felt they're suffocating because they didn't want to go back to Egypt. They don't want to go back to what Egypt represents. But they can't go forward. Is what's being open to them is now the intellect and the emotions. For example, which is now the Jewish people are getting into the 10 attributes. Understanding. That the 10 attributes are being totally revealed to the souls as they are in the world of creation. The way it is in Atzilus means the understanding the way it is. Now, nevertheless, we have to say, splitting of the Red Sea doesn't mean that it totally equalizes, that there's no difference between the world of Bria and the world of Atzilus. World of Bria and the world of Atzilus stay separate because they're different worlds. They don't become one world because the sea splits open. But the absolute separation is not there anymore. You're in the world of creation. You're in your space with your limitations. But now you understand the full picture. You understand it, and you're able to go to Matan Torah. That's what Torah Mitzvahs is. What's Torah Mitzvahs? Torah Mitzvahs didn't change the world physically. Torah Mitzvahs, I mean, we're not talking about the miracles that happened in that moment of Torah Mitzvahs. But that was just the birth event. But the continuation was the world is continuing. But the reality of the world is now changing because of Torah Mitzvahs. There's a higher purpose. I understand the fact that there's a parchment, I can write a Sefer Torah with it and make it something holy. That's what it means, splitting with the Red Sea. It connects, doesn't nullify Bria. It connects Bria as it is, like Avram, like we're going to learn the tribes. The tribes face Yaakov, and Yaakov says, "What's with you? Are you with me?" And they say, "Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad." We are with you, just like you have an Echad, we also have an Echad. But that means that they're connected. Im Hatzilas Mamish B'li Parsa Masach. No longer is there a separation. There's two worlds, but the paths now split through the paths of the Red Sea. Now there's a total connect. The borders are open, totally free going. 12 mesilos, 12 different ways for the tribes to go up to where their father Jacob is in the world of Atzilus. Hamafsik, what was separating before, that's why it's split to 12 for each tribe to be able to find in their method. Right, so that's that. There you see still that in Atzilus there is no 12 methods, but the 12 methods is in the world of Bria, means because it's a world of separation. Each tribe has its path, but each one of their paths have a clear opening to the world of Atzilus, to the understanding of the purpose of creation, to understanding of the power of bringing godliness into this creation. The tribes are in the world of creation. 12 tribes, 12 paths. And there's 12 levels there. Those 12 levels are not in the world of Atzilus. But each one of their levels it means that each one is emes. You know, this means when people know what is the emes, what is the truth? Everything is true. Ruvain is true, Shimon is true, Levi is true. Each one is true for their tribe. That's their path. That's their gate. That's why the Beis HaMikdash also had 12 gates, and at the 13th gate, Shar HaKoilel, the inclusive gate. But that was only a gate if you didn't know where you belong. But if you knew where you belong, you had your specific gate, and you didn't go into the other gates. Reuven didn't go through the Shara Koilel to the inclusive gate. He went through the gate for the tribe of Reuven, Shimon and Levi, Yehuda, etc. Or whatever. Not Levi, but Levi is higher. But we're talking about Menashe and Ephraim, etc. So too, just like there's 12 tribes, there's 12 levels of the angels in the world of creation, which are known as Yud Beis Bakar. And amazingly enough, King Solomon, when in his temple, had everything described in the temple. There was the Yam Shel Shlomo. The Yam Shel Shlomo was this idea that was the sea that was over the 12 Yud Beis Bakar, the 12 cows, and the sea was representing the world of Atzilus, like we said now. Atzilus, Malchus to Atzilus, kingship, royalty of Atzilus, is the sea, and underneath it, what was carrying the sea of each Shlomo was supported on the 12 oxen, which represent the 12 different levels of the angels. The sea was above them. This is brought down in Malachim, in Kings, and in Divrei Yamim. Although we say there's 4 levels, right? We say there's the four parts of the Merkava, just like the rider sits on the four animals, the 4 images of the chariot. So why are we saying 12? But just like the Jewish people traveled in the desert, there were 4 flags. Each flag represented 3 tribes. So 4 times 3 is 12. Michal, Gavriel, Raphael, Ariel. Although the 4 general categories are the angels of Michal, Gavriel, Raphael, and Ariel, right? Those represent the 4 sides of the Shekhinah. But from there it splits, that the river split to 4. Each one of those 4 split to 3. Like the Jewish people traveled in the desert, 3 flags, each flag had 3 tribes. There were 4 flags. Every flag had 3 tribes. That's one of the ideas that's brought down, that there's 3 joints of bending in the palm of the hand and the foot. Meaning to say it's one hand, but it bends 3 ways. It means that there's a subdivision of each division, and that's obvious ideas, and therefore there's 12 general paths that go into Atzilus. Each one has its avodah. So it says the Shvatim themselves, the tribes stay in the world of creation. But they have a shorish, a root, in the 12 Alachsan Dazad Atzilus. What's the 12 Alachsan? I'll just say this short. This is a deep idea. The Yud Beis Gevulei Alachsan is that you could connect if you have 4. You have the 4 sides: north, east, west, south, up and down. So that's 6. 6 each. If you see each midah connects, like it would be basically creating a box out of matches, right? So you could have, if you make a box out of matches, so you would have each side has 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you do it. I've done it before. There's Chesed connects to Gvura connects Chesed. So it's 6 times 6. They connect 6. They connect 2 ways. But so the 6 sides, up, down, and right, north, east, west, and south, make together 12. So that's the 12 Alachsim, which is called. It's to be discussed at another time. And together that works. That's the root of where the tribes come from. But their consciousness is in the world of creation. Kol Deger Yesh Bagimel Shvat. So what happened in splitting the Red Sea? Where the idea was that we're getting ready for Matan Torah. As we're going to explain a little further. We're getting ready for Matan Torah, so therefore we no longer can have the words without any understanding. Again, that the point of Matan Torah was to start understanding. Ata hareisa ladas. You were given to see, to know. That's what Matan Torah was. Ata hareisa ladas. Meaning Hashem, what's the statement? Ki Hashem hu Elikim. What does it mean, Hashem hu Elikim? Yud Kei Vav Kei, which is beyond the world, is Elikim, is our reality. Which means in order for that to be so, there has to be no law. You can't have the sea that covers anymore. It just can't be words. It has to be words with some understanding. Those are the 12 paths that open in the sea. And the idea is that when they split the Red Sea in the 12 paths, now the tribes each go to their source. Each tribe has his path. Each tribe according to its level. Okay, that's all splitting the Red Sea, getting ready for Matan Torah. What we're trying to explain in this mimer is that just like by Matan Torah, there was this huge event that up until that point, there was a separation. There was no understanding. There was no connection between the speech. There was no comprehension of the speech of creation. What does that mean? The world exists. We see it. They lived in it for 1,800 years, but they had no connection to God. They didn't understand the word of what was being said. They had no idea of the articulation. There was no purpose. They didn't understand what the purpose of it was. Avram was Echad Haya Avram. He was able to break through that, and he tried to teach it to them. But when by Matan Torah it became a reality of through Torah mitzvahs. So just like speech, we said you have speeches to someone else because that's the world of Atzilus, and to the world of Bria. World of Bria is creation. Mishami part. It's totally separate. But if you get even deeper within the person, thought is like speech. When you think words, you're also covering over the idea. It's also not 100% being revealed the essence of the intellect. The oisis hamachshava, the words and letters of thought, in a very much more refined, delicate way, is the same concealment as the words of speech. So when we left Egypt, going ready to go into Eretz Yisrael and receive the Torah, it split the speech. When Moshiach comes, we're going to split the thought. We're going to open up the thought, which means basically raw or light, right? If you imagine you're able to totally open up your thought without having even words in your mind to think, basically means. Sorry, Ariel, I have to ask you again. Arash is someone you know?
Yes, she is. Yes. I think she was on yesterday. Yeah.
So
Right.
just like so, when you open up the words of thought, get rid of the words that it's raw or raw light. That's what's going to be revealed when Mashiach comes. That's why the splitting of the Red Sea is splitting the sea. That's to get the Matan Torah into 12. The splitting of the river, when Mashiach comes, which we talk about in today's prophecy, in the prophecy of the Haftorah of Yeshaya, Reb Shimon, is that we're going to split the words of the thought, the letters of thought, and that's when Mashiach comes. We're going to have the raw or. It's like a person that, like the Rebbe gives an example. Alter Rebbe gives an example when you have a vision of something that you can't even think the words. You can't even process it in your thought. It would take too long because you just see it as is. That's seeing godliness that even your mind can't process it, and that's what we're going to be connected to when Mashiach comes. He says, this is talking about the splitting of the Red Sea. That's the speech. The voices. The point of the splitting is that no longer should the letters conceal the idea. We should understand the idea, what's being said. Mashiach comes. Vaheinif Yodo it's not going to be a splitting of the Red Sea, it's going to be a splitting of the river. Where do we have a river in Torah? The river is in the beginning of the creation. The river that goes into the Garden of Eden. That river itself is going to be split. It means not only what's in Garden of Eden, but what's beyond Garden of Eden. The garden is only the Garden of Eden. Eden is much higher than the Garden of Eden. It's like a house and a garden, right? So you have the garden outside the house, but then there's the house. So when Mashiach comes, we're going to enter the house. What's the idea of the splitting of the river? What happened by the splitting of the Red Sea? Like I said before, the only way the Jewish people were able to receive the Torah, not just receive the Torah, but to connect to Torah. That means that when you're doing mitzvahs, you're actually bringing godliness down to the world. We said the story last night of the person. It's amazing. This is the idea, the story of the person who was sick with the disease that the doctor said that you won't survive. But the same disease in animals is a question in the laws of kashrus. Treif means that when people say treif, when you say an animal's treif means that the animal is sick and it won't live out the year. And therefore that's a kosher meat, it's very healthy meat because we look at the animal to see if it was sick. There's signs that it was sick, and therefore it's treif. We can't eat it. But not every illness is agreed, right? So sometimes there's a disagreement. Ashkenazim, the Beis Yosef will say, okay, this is not really a disease, and the Ramah will say it is a disease. This person was inflicted with the disease. So the doctors in Poland told him he's going to die. In Russia, told him he's going to die. He says that's only according to the laws of the Ramah. Because the Ramah is the posik in for Ashkenazim. I'm going to go move to Eretz Yisrael where the laws are according to Beis Yosef. He lived another 23 years. What does that mean? That means that the reality of what his life, Torah decided how if he could live this illness or not. It means he was sick. The doctor says, "What's have to do with Torah?" Because he didn't disconnect his physical health to Torah. If Torah says that this is not considered a sickness, it's not a sickness. He went to Eretz Yisrael where the law was like the Beis Yosef. That's the idea of Kriyas Yamsuf. When Kriyas Yamsuf happened, you're able to Kabbalah Torah. Kabbalah Torah means to connect Torah to the reality of the world. Hayam ra v'yonis haram raktu kayam matan Torah. What does it mean that when we describe in the Hallel of the process of the splitting of the Red Sea that the mountains were dancing? It's talking about the dancing the mountain of Matan Torah of Har Sinai. What's the idea of Torah mitzvahs? Revealing the infinite light below Bibiyah in the world of creation, of separation. That seemingly it's separate, but when you connect to the reality that this is old Torah, then this person, like this person, Rabbi Eliyahu, is not even a question. He moves to Eretz Yisrael, he lives another 23 years. Why? Because Torah decides how things are. As it's revealed in the world of Atzilus. In the world of Atzilus, everything is one. And by the giving of the Torah was to reveal that in this world, in the creation. What allowed for that to happen? You no longer can have words without understanding. You have to make the path, the Mesilas, the 12 paths between that our reality connects to the reality of the world of Atzilus. That's the splitting of the Red Sea. Bringing the knowledge through the words, like the smart person who does understand. But in the world of separation, if not for the splitting of the Red Sea, it's all separate. It's yesh. We feel separate. We're something. Davar nifrad, disconnected. Mitzvahs. When we do mitzvahs, that's what Torah mitzvahs about, which are the Ramacha Varm Demalka, the 248 limbs of the king. That what's being revealed, and we don't totally get it. We don't 100%, just like the teacher and the student. You don't totally get it. It's a process of getting it. And this itself is going to be completed with Moshiach. But when Moshiach comes, there's going to be a higher level of revelation that we're going to say, which is the splitting of the river. We had to have the splitting of the Red Sea. You can't have a disconnect, 100% disconnect, and expect us to have a connection to what we're doing, or to be able to do anything. It would be literally like giving a child a manual who could read, right? You give a child a manual that could read. He could read the manual. She could read the manual. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I don't know what a screwdriver is. I don't know what nails are. I don't know what a board is. How am I supposed to make anything? I have no idea what I'm talking about. I could say the words. So if we don't have the splitting of the Red Sea, how's the Torah how are we going to bring the Torah into the world? There had to be the splitting of the Red Sea. Shu inyan b'kiyas aparsa. Had to break the separation. Hamavsekas that separates between the world of Atzilus and the world of Bria. They went into the dry land. They went into that space. Only then they were able to receive the Torah. And that's one of the reasons why, according to a lot of opinions, the Jewish people walked in a U. They didn't go anywhere. They came out the same side they came from. They went in, right? They went into the sea. They walked in and walked out. The same side they walked in and continued their way. So what was the whole purpose of the splitting of the Red Sea? It wasn't just to save themselves from Egypt, because the splitting of the Red Sea was itself a process of the next step of redemption. More is the next step of getting closer to Matan Torah. Like I said, the idea of the Egyptians on one side and the sea on the other side is not just a physical experience, but the Egyptians represented the world. Pharaoh came to say, look, you guys don't know what you're doing. You're lost in the desert. You thought you're going to some spiritual journey. It doesn't exist. It's not real. Come back to my world. Here is my world. Yes, you're slaves, but you get fed, right? They didn't stop complaining about the free fish and cucumbers they had, right? So they had a certain level of certainty. So, but they said, where do you want us to go? You want us to go to the sea? I don't understand anything. Now they entered the sea. Now they do understand. Now they could go to Matan Torah. Leave Egypt behind totally. The idea of Matan Torah is now, today we're doing. We have to actually do the performance. But Talmud Torah instead of Torah, which is the greatest of all, Kenegat Kulam. What does it mean that we're going to have our reward later, tomorrow, which is last of when Moshiach comes? Then when Moshiach comes, it's not going to be just connecting to the words. But when you get to the pnimius, like he said in the example, that the idea of the sea is also that the pnimius, the internal, is not revealed in the words at all. V'tami mitzvahs, we're going to understand the mitzvahs. Like Rashi says, Yishakenu Meshikas Piyu, what does it mean? The idea in Shir Hashim of the kiss, which represents the revelation between the relationship between God and the Jewish people, is more revelation, pnimius, internalizing the relationship. We're not sitting across the table anymore. This is what Mashiach is about. Shnamar by Hine Yaskel means not just Mashiach as an idea, but Mashiach as a person. That what is Mashiach? The Yeshaya Navi says, Hine Yaskel Avdi, my servant will have the idea of Sechel. Yaskel means from the word intellect. Yarim Venice is going to be very great. Hainu, what's great? Great from whom? Avram Yitzchak, he's going to be greater than Avram and Yitzchak. Ad v'gav Moed, and the prophet continues. He's going to be very great, very high. What's the same letters in the word Moed? Is Oisius Adam. He's going to be even greater than first man. Mashiach will be as a person even greater than Moses. This is the Alter Rebbe says, not me. But who yilma das l'cholam. He's going to teach the people. Das, understanding, connection. Bahasagas pnimis haTorah. We're going to understand the inner secrets of Torah when Mashiach comes. Ki'im lefi pshutei sheyilma v'hu yilamed Torah das l'cholam bahasagas pnimis haTorah. If we just want to say that Mashiach is going to teach us just the regular Torah that we know now, what's called the revealed Torah, to our children, any movement doesn't make sense. Means if you want to say that Mashiach is just a technical time, that he's going to be another teacher, but you think he's going to teach tens of thousands of people? What's he going to teach Moshe? Moshe knows it all already. If Mashiach is just going to continue to teach what we know, that's going to be another Shir Gemara, nothing against the Shir Gemara. But if you want to think that Mashiach is going to come and it's going to be just a big base medrash as was, then what's the purpose of Mashiach? What's he going to teach Moshe Rabbeinu? Moshe Rabbeinu is going to be resurrected. What's Moshe going to learn? The secrets of Torah are going to be revealed. Which is much greater than any measurement. And in the depth of Pnimis Torah is going to have elevations and on top of elevations, etc. Just like in order for us to receive the Torah, we had to split the Red Sea. Otherwise, it's just words and we can't connect. In order for there to be the revelation of the secrets of Torah, there has to be the process of Vaheinif Yodo el Hanar. There's another water space that has to be split open. Not the Red Sea, but now we're talking about the river. What river is this? Nar Paras. The Paras River, the Euphrates River. Nar Paras. This is the main of the rivers. The Hainu Bechinas Vanar Yetziat Mitzrayim means it's the splitting of the rivers went 4 splits, but one was the original. There's 3 split off from the original. Pras was the original. Bechinas Bina, that's the great understanding. She Bechinas HaMachshava Shel Ma'al Midibar. Now we're going to connect. When Moshiach comes, we're not just going to split the speech; we're going to split the thought. And like he says, he brings an example of the Ari HaKadosh, that the Ari, on one Shabbos, he said he had a dream, and what he saw in that dream, in that vision, because it would take him 80 years to articulate the dream. So the Alter Rebbe asked, "What do you mean? It'll take him 80 years to articulate the dream?" Okay, so he saw it in thought, right? Thought is okay. Let's say something that you do in 5 minutes, if something you do in 10 hours in speech, you could do it in, let's say, 2 hours in thought, or an hour in thought, half hour thought. But a 30-minute dream to 80 years is not proportionate. Why? Because that's if you have words of thought. But if you split the words, you could be given a vision that's so deep and so revealing and so much awe that there's not enough time in the world for you ever to articulate it. Why? Because you went past the words of thought. No, words of thought would take you you can never think of such an idea. You could just see it spiritually. And that's what's going to happen when Mashiach comes. It's going to split the separation of thought. We're just going to see it as is, raw godliness. Vaheinif Yodo el Hanar v'unar pras v'hu michar shehu b'chinas machshava shel ma'al medibar. This is splitting this thought, which is even harder than splitting the speech. That's why we call it different than a sea of water. It's called a river. One of the ideas of a river, it's just like a river runs, so too your thought never stops, right? A person's thoughts are always running, never quiet. It is always running. That's why this is an example is given in the river. Like it says, they're going to rush through all the nations and rush towards Moshiach. The sea is like a pool of water. A pool doesn't have to be rushing. It could be running or it could be shaking, but it's not the waters aren't moving from point A to point B. The kavu v'kamu, that's speech. That's where we're going from the river. It's coming from the Eden. That's the source that fills the garden. And just like we had to split the sea because we had to get past the words of speech, so too we have to get past the letters, the oisius of the thought. And just like on a much more delicate level, because you're the same person, right? When you think, see, sometimes you can have such a deep thought, something so deep that you yourself can't even articulate it to yourself. Never mind trying to articulate to someone else, but even in your own brain, in your own thinking process, you can't really grasp the idea. It's so deep, and that's so just like the words separate from what's to the in the power in the process of communication. So too in the thoughts, the letters of the thoughts also separate. It's much more internal. It's much deeper. It's much more delicate. It's still a garment. And a garment in this case means separation. And it's a concealment to the essence of the wisdom. Just like we said in the speech, although on a much more delicate level. It's not exactly the same. It's not the same concealment because your thought knows some part of the idea. But again, the thought is still doesn't. There could be an idea that's so deep that your thought doesn't really, you can't even think it. Forget, never mind, communicate it. What does it mean that Moshiach, God is going to put his hand in the days of Moshiach over the river? Essence will be revealed. Eden ha'elyon, the Eden that's above the Garden of Eden. Eden itself. It's not the way it flows through the river. That the river is the bina, the understanding, that goes from Eden to the garden. Which is what is the river of thought? The river of thought are letters and words of thought. They enclose and they conceal. It's not the essence. The Talmud tells us, with regard to Eden itself, it says ayin le'rasa, no eye has ever seen it. V'shemet toimer hu gan hu Eden. Maybe when it says ayin le'rasa is referring to that no eye has seen it, is referring to the Garden of Eden. Again, Eden and Garden of Eden is the same thing. This is the Talmud. The Gemara says this. Talmud Lomer v'nar yoytzim Eden lahashik zagan. The river left Eden to plant the garden. That means the garden and Eden are two separate places. The only way for Eden to go into the garden is through the river, and the river is the letters of thought, the words of thought. And there's a concealment. The Garden of Eden doesn't have the same revelation as Eden itself. And just like words conceal, and you only get a ray, a ha'ara of what's being passed over. You don't have the essence. You can't really grasp the essence in the words. Sometimes you grasp nothing in the words. But when he when he dries out the river, there's no more river. There's no more concealment. What's going to be revealed when Mashiach comes is Eden itself. This is what it means. I ran into flows. What does Micha say is going to happen when Moshiach comes? We're going to see wonders. What's wonders? We spoke about it before. The difference between wonders and miracles are that a miracle, Nisim is miracles, and Neflos is wonders. A miracle is, for instance, like the Jewish people by the Red Sea. They had no way out, but technically they knew there's a way to get out of it, right? If you're the Egypt on one side and you have the sea on the other side, so you're trapped. But if God were to kill the Egyptians or they were to disappear, then you have no problem. If the sea is no longer there, you don't have a problem. The problem is the reality of it is they're there. So what's the miracle? The miracle is the sea splits. A miracle usually is that something that it's not. It could be a great miracle, but it's not. It's just that it happened is the miracle. But the method of but how is you're not shocked when the sea splits. You're not shocked that you get saved. You know how you got saved. You got saved because the river's the water's not is no longer blocking you. You could go through the water. That doesn't make sense. It's against the laws of nature. That's why it's a miracle. Wondrous means you can't even imagine such a thing. It's wondrous that it could even exist. Arenu neflois means not only that there's wonders, you're going to see the wonders. Arenu neflois. Arenu daikim. B'chinas riya mamish. It's not going to be you're going to understand the wonders. And then again, it's watered down with words. It's literally going to be a vision of wonders. It's much greater than any kind of listening. Oh, I heard it, or understanding. That's watered down by words. You can't compare. That's why halachically, when someone says, "I heard this," okay, you heard it, but you didn't see it. And what are they going to see? They're going to see the essence of the chachma of Atzilus, of the wisdom of Atzilus. We'll finish with this, what I said before, that the Arizal says. Shabbos was a Shabbos Friday night. I think it was Shabbos Parshas Balak. In other places it says that. And the Arizal slept. Shama b'yeshiva shel Maili, he heard things in the upper worlds. The Parshas Balak, in the Parshas of Balak of Bilam, here it says it here, Dvarim nefloim, things of wonders. If he spoke straight for 80 years, means 80 years each year, of 365 days, of 24 hours, of 60 seconds, non-stop, he couldn't articulate what he saw in that one dream on Friday night. The Rebbe says it doesn't make any sense. How could he have grasped in his thought, in that dream, in 1 hour, that would take 80 years to say. And not only that, he said he couldn't say it in 80 years. Means 80 years is still not enough time. The point is, the difference between the words of speech and words of thought, that the words of thought are considered the big words. You could think quickly what would take much longer to speak. That's why the words of thought are considered larger words. They contain much more information. Right? In a second, you could think an idea. It could take you 10 minutes to articulate it. It says now it's in the proportion of the difference between speech and thought would be a quarter of an hour versus 2 hours. But to say that in 1 hour you could think something that takes 80 years to speak, that doesn't make sense. So what's the point? The idea is, he didn't hear words. He didn't sit up in heaven and hear words and understand it for such amount of time. It's true, Julie, about art. That is the art. That's very true. That's why you have pictures. That's what he says. The point is that he saw it as a visual. He saw it as is. This is the raw revelation. Not the way it goes into the even understanding or comprehension of words. It's much beyond any level of intellect. As it would, if the intellect would go into any kind of words or comprehension. If I were to enclose it into words, it would take 70, 80 years. But if you see it as a raw vision, it's just you see it. This is what it is. I can never tell you what I saw. And the greater the revelation of what you've seen, the more complex it is and longer it would be to articulate. It's like we're saying, it's like 1,000 years. To God is like 1 minute. This is what Moshe said. I want to cross over ve'eres arts. I don't want to speak about the land. I want to see the land. He wanted to see Eretz Yisrael. To see it like the Arizal saw the vision of that night. See Eretz Yisrael in its total purity, in the vision of the land, as you would see something that's so deep. That's what Moshe asked Hashem, Eber Nova Eretz Aretz, I want to see the land. Moshe sees from the beginning, and wasn't that Moshe wanted himself to see it? He wanted, imagine the Jewish people would cross into the land, and they would see Eretz Yisrael as Moshe saw Eretz Yisrael. Moshe davened. Why did Moshe daven so many tefillahs to go to Eretz Yisrael? Because he saw it like you see a vision, like you see something that you can't articulate. There was no words that Moshe could to tell the Jewish people to describe Eretz Yisrael that would give them the understanding of their vision of Eretz Yisrael. And therefore he said to God, let me go over the era, and I will show the Jewish people Eretz Yisrael. They shouldn't enter the land like they enter the world of words. They should enter Eretz Yisrael and with the vision of Eretz Yisrael. So he says, he wanted to give that vision of Eretz Yisrael to the Jewish people. Eretz Chayfetz, to show this is a land of desire. Now, to understand that Eretz Yisrael is a land of desire, you can't have words for that. Desire is beyond articulation. You can't articulate a true desire. To see the Chayfetz in Eretz Yisrael. He wasn't able to be. He wasn't granted that. The best he could do is talk to the people about Eretz Yisrael. Talk to the people about Torah mitzvahs. But when Moshiach comes, the Moshiach, this is going to be revealed with Moshiach. And that's what he continues to say, that that's the idea of the difference between, that's why we're going into this great holiday tomorrow night of Shvi Shel Pesach, where we celebrate the splitting of the Red Sea, which is to remember how we split the words, and we got to Matan Torah. And then the next day in Achron Shel Pesach, when we read the Haftorah of Mashiach, we talk about when Mashiach comes, there's going to be a splitting of the river. We're given a little bit of a glimpse of what it's going to be when Mashiach comes, to split even the separation of our thought, to mamash get the vision of how it's going to be when the day when Hashem Echad Yishmei Echad, when all is one. Thank you all for joining. I wish everyone a good Yom Tov, continuation of Yom Tov. Take care.